Hi everyone, it's Angel again. I am here today with Sherrie and our first episode of our series, The Randomness of Witches. I hope you enjoy this new series.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Sherrie. Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to everybody?
Oh, do I have to?
Yes.
Well, I'm Sherrie. I wrote a book. It took me about a year. Blood City Rain, Mistress of Dolls, practicing witch since I was 14 off and on. I'm not going to give how old I am today, so that's like over 20 plus years. But thank you for having me. I'm super stoked to help a friend.
Of course. I am really excited. The community between Unseen Witches Society and Witches Owl has been amazing, with supporting with this.
Well,
Obviously,
they're really good with supporting each other, right? Like, they really pump each other up, which is great.
that is for sure. And actually, Sherrie's one of my pals.
Yes, we followed the old ways of snail mail.
Yeah. The magic in the writing. Well, that's the one thing Crystal and I always talk about is when it comes to Witches Owl Exchange, all the magic still in the writing, And we send each other little gifts, I love getting the tarot cards.
I love just getting the letters. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the little added goodies because I squeal and cackle and do a little happy dance. But for me, it's just the whole vibe of it, right? Like, it's almost like secret society. We're writing letters back and forth.
Yeah.
I've even done where it looks like the old like vellum style where you have textured paper that's made into the envelope and it's got like a little tie and it's sealed. But I don't do that anymore because that's way too much time to do now.
Yeah, and it costs so much. I had a letter that I sent that was not overweight, but because of the way it folded, and I guess in the shipment it expanded, so it ended up costing $5 to mail a letter.
So for us, because we just had a raise in postal rates, which sucks, because I remember paying a lot less and getting more stamps. But you have to have your letters under 100 grams and 5 millimeters, or you pay the oversized, and the oversized is about $5. So if I write a significant letter, the last letter was 6 pages, and I had to pay, I think it was another $6 on top of the already $3 stamp that was on there. And it was wow.
And that's to ship to mail here, or?
Yeah, just to mail to the States.
Well, that's crazy, because I think the international stamp, hang on, I'm going to Google. This is what today's podcast is going to be about, is shipping.
Let's see if I can reach my stamps, because I could tell you how much, it is.
I also thought it was so interesting that you have, stamp systems to the U.S., and then you have your within Canada stamp, then you have your international stamp.
And then they have stamps for everything. It's you have international oversized, you have international, you have American oversized, Canadian. And then with the Canadian, if you're sending parcels, then you have so many different boxes and then pre-stamped letters. And it's wow.
Okay, so the price of a global travel stamp in the U.S. is $1.65. And that's for a 1 hour letter or postcard to any country.
Gee, we're really getting ripped off here. Okay, so for international here, and just remember these aren't the new pricing because I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but for international is $3.65 for a stamp.
Yeah.
For oversized American, it's $2.61. For just regular American is $1.75. And of course, the Canadian one I think is $5, but I can't tell because I'm not wearing my glasses and sitting by candlelight.
Yeah.
And knocking everything over as I put things back.
Yeah. So our just regular U.S. stamp is 73 cents. And we're complaining about our stamps going up.
Well, it's because we're so used to within our country what it's like that we don't realize outside of our countries. The dollars are going to be different. What we pay for things is going to be different. I have a pen pal that sends from the UK and it's $13, $14 to send. And I'm wow, how are you not going bankrupt just writing, these really beautiful letters? But in the same aspect, I don't go out, I don't go party, I don't really do much. I go to work and come home and, you can hear me cackling around the house. So, I mean, that kind of makes up for it too. Just because, like, everything is going up in price, especially for us in Canada. We have the carbon tax, which is a weird tax that we pay in, and then we get, every 3 months a little payment, but whatever. It's weird. Like, just all these little things start to add up, like stuff that would have cost, $200 for a month's worth of groceries. You're lucky if that lasts a week now.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh yeah, like I like grocery shopping because my mom and grandma don't leave the house much because of disability and age and stuff like that. And I went grocery shopping and I spent like $100 and it was like 4 bags. Mom's like, "What did you buy?" I'm like, "Eggs. I bought eggs."
Well, and that's the thing. Like, just normal staples that we would have in the house is going up in price. Like, I'm kind of glad this year, like, veggies is the worst of it because, like, I lived in, like, northern Manitoba, right? And now living in, like, southern Saskatchewan, there's a huge difference in pricing. Like, people want to joke and complain, oh, well, we paid or $12, sorry, for a 4 liter of milk. And, from a little grocery section at a convenience store. I paid that at a grocery store living up north. It's funny because, like, everybody's complaining southern wise, like, oh, well, this is more expensive. I'm sitting there going, I'm saving money because, like, I'm not paying the same prices. And that's not just, like, food. That was even, like, my witchcraft supply. And now that I have, like, a huge garden space, the yard is going to be so witchified, it's not even funny.
I'm so excited to do that. I'm coming up to do it, I guess. Obviously, that's why I just said that. So I guess I'll make it a trip to Canada. I mean, I've been wanting to go to Canada again. But yeah, prices, like, I lived in Kodiak Island, right? Way back when I lived in Kodiak, a gallon of milk was like $5. And we weren't as expensive as other, like, bush places in Alaska. Like, I had been to places that was like $12 per gallon, right? So when I came down to Florida, everybody was like complaining about the prices going up. But at the time when I came down in 2018, it was like a dozen eggs was like 88 cents. Now the prices that we have in Florida are what I was paying in Kodiak. So I'm almost here to see how much it costs to live in Kodiak.
I'd hate to see, like, for us with the territories, like the Nunavut, Northwest, Yukon, what they're paying because, like, most of their supply is flown in or brought in by train. So, that cost is transferred there. And all I could think right now is, like, man, when did we get old? Because we're talking about pricing.
Right?
Who sold us this adulting package?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I think that has a lot to do with, like, witchcraft too, because the cost of living, it makes you do more abundance things, more money magic, more growing stuff.
Yep.
I have big pots in my backyard that I grew carrots in. They flooded, so I have to drill more holes for it to drain better. But I was growing carrots in the backyard.
Nice.
But if you think about it, that's all connecting back into witchcraft. Like, everything has to do with witchcraft. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm doing a lot of abundance rituals,
Money bowl. That's my plan this Saturday is because I never do anything in the first 2 weeks of the newer calendar new year because I celebrate my new year in spring around my birthday just because it makes sense, right? Spring equinox is the start of a really good time to do it, but I still do it after the first couple of weeks of January. So I'm gonna start my money bowl, and I've got, like, seeds that I've been kind of just, like, swirling away. And now that I have the space, because living up north, we would still have winter sometimes, like, middle of June. We had snow last year and it was in July, but we were also under, forest fire watch. And so there was other aspects that I was like foraging because, you can get like your charcoal from burnt areas that were no longer active, which I don't recommend. Just wait till like the fall and it's been raining
Yeah.
because, safety first. But here, there's a farmer's market. I have quite a few friends that live on farms, so I can go get like some hay to make my Bridget's cross because I like doing the broke witch stuff. So if I don't
Yeah.
have to spend money, and I can forage it, or I can get it like the Dollar Tree or what is the Dollarama? Because we don't have a lot of dollar stores that are as cool as you guys. Um, it's true. I keep hearing about this
Oh,
and I'm like, I want to go. And then that Five Below, is that what it's
yeah.
called?
Yep. I have all three around me. To the east, I have a Five Below that I can walk to. And then to the north, which I can walk to, I have the Dollar Journal and the Dollar Tree in the same spot.
I'm jelly.
Yep.
Like, seriously. But I like doing the broke witch, right? Like, you got a couple
Yeah.
bucks, you go to the spice section. Oh, look, you can get tea lights. And if I can't make it myself,
Mhm.
I'll thrift it. If I can't thrift it, then I'll buy it brand new. But I always check, like, I have a dollar stores first. If I can't get it there, then maybe I'll order it online or I'll support a local business.
Yeah.
For me, it seems more practical because, like, when I first came out of the broom closet, which is just over a decade ago, and it wasn't, the witchy aesthetic wasn't there where everybody
Yeah.
was a witch now and everybody's collecting crystals, but it was still like crazy expensive for some things. Like, do I need it in a theme? No. My son ended up giving me one of his pocket knives, and that's my thing. I have one now because, hey, my crystal lady,
Mhm.
he had an amazing sale and I absolutely love it. And I was like, I want that. But like, that is mine. It's calling my name.
Yeah.
But like, I'd rather support small businesses like thrift
Okay.
stores because some of them do amazing things. I go to the library a lot to get like my books because why would I pay 14, 15 bucks for a brand new book when I can go to the library? It could be a discard, it could be an estate book, and I'm spending like $1.25.
I just bought for the with exchange. I know I hate talking about them because you can't do them because of you being a almost like Canadian.
Yeah, in Canada, in the great countryside of Canada, where we
Yeah.
still have our battle moose and pillaging polar bears.
I got pulled over. Not I should restate that. My ex-husband, the first time we moved to Kodiak, got pulled over by a Mountie, and we were like, "They really exist?"
Yup.
I mean, he didn't give us a ticket or anything because we were like, what are you gonna do? Ban us from coming to Canada?
Where I'm living now, it used to be when Canada was still forming. It
Yeah.
used to be the Parliament, or not the Parliament, but it was like the capital of the Northwest Territories. Literally a 20-minute walk from my door to this national park. It's not really a national park; it's like a historic site. Is Fort Battleford. So that is where the Northwest Police, which eventually became the Royal Mounted Police,
Okay.
were housed and policing all of Western Canada. So everything that was Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, the territories, that's where it was.
That's so
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because when calls the heart, that's why I was like, they really did. And they really do dress like that. Like,
yep.
obviously not like that anymore, but they do dress like what you see in the movies.
Well, deadly
Alaska,
deer right.
yeah, exactly. Alaska is basically just Canada, just owned by the US.
Well,
I mean,
it's like Canada light, right?
yeah,
Like they still have like where everything's covered in ice. They have the frigid tempers, and then they
yeah,
have like the really hot summers and odd
yeah.
growing periods. That's basically all of Canada just rolled into
Yeah.
one.
Well, you lived in North Canada too, so you know how everybody like helps everybody else,
Yep.
right? If something happens, everybody else helps everybody else because there just isn't anything. That's how Alaska is. I had somebody when I drove by myself the second time I moved to Alaska. So it was me, the dog, the skinny pigs and the regular guinea pigs and a goldfish. The cat had flown. Driving through the Alcan, right? Yeah, you've been down the Alcan, right? There's nothing. Like, you're lucky if you even have like GPS. And it continues into Alaska too, right? Well,
Yeah.
I had gotten to Tok, Alaska, I think, right over the boulder. I don't remember what, and I stayed there. So I was trying to make it to Anchorage the next day. So there's nothing. You can't pull over. You're not going to a gas station. Thankfully, as long as you pull up in one town, you can make it to the next town. But if you're not full tank of gas, you're not making it to the next town. And it's not like you can call for help, right? You're at the will of the gods, right? Well,
Yeah.
I couldn't go because we were driving for like 5 hours and we all had to go to the bathroom. The dog had to go to the bathroom. My kid had to go to the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom. Well, I guess.
And you don't want to stop on the side of the road and just like, squat here or there because you don't know if a grizzly bear is going to come up on your backside.
Or fireweed or pushy. So this time we did have to, like, there was no other choice. So we were like, I pulled on the side of the road. We went down so we could do our business. And I guess because I sat on the side of the road for so long, the people that were up on the side of the mountain saw that we were sitting there, came down to check on us to make sure we didn't break down. I was like, that was like the nicest thing ever. When I was pregnant in Alaska, my car kept breaking down because it was stupid because it was a Florida car in Alaska. And they would get out and push the car off the side of the road until it cooled off and would start back up again.
Well, and you can also look at like the different altitudes, right? Like we're being in northern Canada, we're not as like Colorado with the higher altitudes, but it's still higher because like if you come from like northern Manitoba and you drive the 8 hours and you end up in Winnipeg, you definitely can feel the difference in altitude, like just all over. Like your body feels it, the way you're breathing feels it, your head feels it, and your ears, they're popping left, right, and center, which is annoying. And it's crazy, but it's that altitude does change. And where I was living was like rocky, like it was Newfoundland light.
Yeah, I think I totally got you there. Are there any like legends or stuff like that up in South? So where you lived before or where you live now, like mystical?
So there is a few legends that I learned about. I don't know how well they're actually true or not because some of the information is coming from like old timers. So where I was living in Flin Flon, the way that Flin Flon got its story, so you can watch like the YouTube Canadian vignettes or whatever they call it, vignettes. I don't know. It's a fancy word I don't use ever. So but the way that Flin Flon was founded was Tom Creighton, this prospector. He was working for Hudson Bay Company, which is still the majority mine up there. Stumbled across this place, which is the location of Flin Flon and Creighton, and he found this dime store novel, which was about this guy named Flintitavity Josiah Floniton, which is Flinty is our town mascot. Found this dime store novel, and that's how Flin Flon became. I don't know how much that is true. I mean, it is plausible, trappers had this novel because there is a lot of indigenous reservations up there and a lot of indigenous communities. I mean, there's a lot of communities up north that you would have never known. Like, in 1997, I'm really making myself feel old. I lived in Thompson, and Thompson was like already a very well-established city. It's a northern community, and at that time it was like the murder capital of Canada. I am not kidding you. And I moved to the sister city. Well, I work in the sister city, but I moved into that area. And it's like it's the same. It's home. I'm happy. But some of the other ones was during World War II in Flin Flon, there was I guess like a Nazi spy living out on one of the islands in Phantom Lake. I'm not sure if it's Phantom Lake or if it's the other lake because stories conflict, but he was spying on the mine to make sure we weren't doing munitions. And then the town had found out and, it wasn't good endings. Yeah. Personally, not to say anything bad about Flin Flon, but I think it's actually cursed. Just because there's a lot of bad things that happen there, and it just seems so centered onto that community. Like, it gives that vibe. It's very ominous. I was gone for like 21 years, and
Mhm.
it really hadn't changed at all. So it's like,
Really?
it's kind of like time forgot that this place existed. Like, it looked exactly the same as it did as I was a kid. A few things changed, but it was still all the same. Like, I knew where I was going.
Mhm.
Whereas, most communities like where I'm at now, because I lived on in the new town long ago, but it's grown, it's changed, it doesn't look the same. And I'm sitting there going, like, that's very, different aspects. Where I'm living now, I'm still learning all the legends. Like, there was a residential school here, there was a day school here, same location. We have the fort. The fort, I'm not gonna lie, Angel. The fort feels haunted. Like, when you walk the grounds, you can feel the energy shift, the temperature shift with certain buildings. Like, they have a horse hospital
Mhm.
or infirmary for sick horses there. And just going in, you get that feeling of dread. Like, I don't want to go in there. So you can definitely feel like that horse's apprehension. And like, they're now including the indigenous aspect for the fort. But when you go to the commandant's house, the kitchen wasn't so bad. Like, you could feel the warmth. You could feel whoever was cooking the meals there, they took pride in what they did. But if you go any further in that house, it was cold. I've
Oh.
never felt that cold and unwelcomed in my life. Like, I'm walking around, I'm checking things out, I'm being made. Like, there's a lot of history with how Canada was formed, just like the States and just like, a lot of other countries. I just felt that cold shiver and I was like, yep, no, I need to leave this house. Like, I am not welcome here. Like, you could feel like the boots hitting the hard wood and you can feel that stare. Like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be here. Get out. And it's like, yeah, no, not going to be here. I'm bye. And zoom right out the door. But
I wonder.
even with, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if maybe that commandant, whoever spent the most time there, they were abusive too. Like
I
he
could
was
see it.
married, right? You know?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, right? Like, when Canada was formed, the way that they did it and the way that residential schools came around, the tactics that they used, I mean, there was so much hate
Mhm.
because, like, you even look at, like I said, like, I'm Métis, so we're here in Canada are a recognized nation. So we are Indigenous and European descent. We're bridge people, basically. We bridge both worlds.
Yeah.
A lot of Indigenous communities do not recognize us. If you're white passing, you're white. And I'm sitting there going, I'm incognito. Like my mom, she got white carded. She is treaty. My uncle was treaty. The toner just ran out when I was born. Like,
Right.
literally, like, I'm the lightest skinned in my family. And it's like, I'm incognito. I blend in. But there's a lot of hate towards, people that, because of the way that the Indigenous population was treated in the times that they were created. Like, I remember going to school and I maybe saw one or two Indigenous kids in my classes up until about, I want to say, grade 5. Then it was a different story. There was a lot of Indigenous kids, you know, at grade 7. That's when I found out my family's history because it wasn't something that we, talked about. Oh, you were just French, we're part Irish. And then when I found out, oh no, we're more than that. It was like opening a new world. So as time progressed and I, hit 14 and I had questions, and I feel sorry for those priests that had to deal with me for, reconciliation and, anytime they ever had to deal with me. I was a smart aleck because I was raised Roman Catholic, but when I started branching into my culture, my heritage, I started adding my Métis side, my Irish side, my Scottish side, and my French side, and started picking and choosing what I was believing. All these new doors opened up.
Mhm.
And I totally just went off topic.
But you're completely fine. Well, we were talking about it being haunted, you know. You know what I just did? I am going to be buying tea from Crystal. Yeah, her Lilith tea. Yeah. And I
I
just bought a ton from Sarah Lee because she's like cheap, like for half an ounce. I was like, ooh. So I was like buying some for my with partner and then buying for me. Yeah.
I definitely want to order from Sarah Lee's shop, and I definitely want to order some Crystal because watching when she does her like lives on the teas, I'm like I can almost smell it. And I'm like, I don't have that clear sense, but I'm not kidding you. When she's talking about it, like it hits me like a brick wall, and I'm like, I want some. I can only imagine how that tastes. Like I'm all about teas. I'm all about like my coffees. I have to have my go-go juice in the morning because I do not function, but I want to start drinking less coffee and more tea. And like I've tried to make these blends. Some of them are, you know, when that like in the cartoons where they're at the chemistry table and they're mixing stuff together and it goes poof in their face. That's what it's like for me
Yeah.
because some of them they're just overpowering on one thing and like, well, that was fun. So then I turn them into bath teas because they do smell amazing. They're just overpowered by one or two things, and I don't want to make a huge batch. So then I just use them for bath teas afterwards because you know what? They smell amazing. Anything goes good with a bath tea, like, well,
Yeah.
except for, you know, if you don't have a bath, but they have pop-up bathtubs now, so.
Or you can soak your feet. Like if you can't soak your whole body, soak your feet because this is the herbalist in me. Your feet have like reflexology are linked to all of your organs. So get your feet in there. And like you said, if you don't like tea, you can use it in your magical work too.
The broke witch in me is going, yes, you just cut open that little bag, throw it into your little cauldron or whatever, mix it into a spell jar. Oh yeah, I
That's
love
what
tea for that stuff.
the new year, new me. That's why I did the chamomile from the tea bags instead of doing it from anything else. What else was I going to say? How do you like describe yourself as a witch?
I'm like the squirrel from Over the Hedge that has had a Red Bull or a coffee. I'm all over the place, a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
Very mellow though. Like my path, it changes all the time. Like I was very much when I first came to like Witches Owl Exchange and Unseen and Where Witches Roam, I was very much love and light and healing. And now being 2025, I'm more, no, I want to heal me. I'm not going to heal you. I want for me that like more left-handed ish path. Like I'm starting to explore new options for me, but I
Yeah.
still, you know, the old ways of my thinking are slowly disintegrating, but they still jump back and forth with it. Like, oh no, I'm going to get, you know, a lecture for doing this. And I'm going, wait, I'm the adult now. I have adult
Yeah.
money. I can do this. But
Yeah.
for
And
me,
you can do
the close, sorry,
you can do whatever you want. Like that's the best thing about magic is really whatever it calls to you, you can do it.
right? And like for me, it's I tell everybody like the closest label is going to be eclectic. I'm a little bit of everything. But the way that I describe my path is I'm a witch of many trades, mistress to none. And it's
Yeah.
true. Like I've been reading tarot since I was 14. And that's the one thing about my path that I've always done is read tarots.
Yeah.
You know, I did spellcrafting when I was 14. I was that kid that I would read and read and read. And then I don't ask questions. I just jump in head first and think about the consequences later. Well, some of the things now looking back on it, like I knew better. Like, you know, and then you see all those Hollywood movies. Like, I'm not going to lie. I wanted to be like the girls on The Craft
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, practical magic, charmed. Charmed
Yeah.
was the one that I really wanted to be like. I wanted to have that sisterhood, very solitaire practitioner.
Yeah. I wanted to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
We're really making ourselves sound old now because these are all shows that are getting redone.
Actually, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is on Amazon. It's a live channel. that you can keep watching it. So, oh, what else? Oh, yeah, like, I think that's gonna be awesome to have in this podcast. We're all real here, no editing. I mean,
Yeah,
no way of editing.
we're just all
We're
over the place.
yeah. I think a lot of people that I talk to that are, like, serious practitioners were young, from, like, 9 to 13. It seems like a lot of the girls is, like, 13, 14. The first time I tried playing cards to read tarot, I was 11. I actually started reading real tarot at, like, 14. I started looking up spells and stuff at 14. I didn't actually do anything. Oh, Ouija board. Me and doing it by yourself. Because that's why when people talk about Ouija boards, I'm kind of just like, it's a tool. Like, I've never, unless I'm very, very possessed now. But man, I had a pretty good life for being possessed, so I guess it's fine. I would use the Ouija board always by myself, and I'd be like 13, 14, 15 doing it by myself. I still use it by myself, you know?
Well, I think there's a difference though from the way that we did things as, coming into the craft as children or littles or whatever you want to call, spicy attitudes. It's different than what there is now, because like now they have all these Hollywood things. You've got so much information at your fingertips. Like I want to say 8, 9 years old, seeing somebody else use the Ouija board. I didn't use the Ouija board. Like it was something I didn't know about it. I didn't know what it is. When I read the instructions, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. No thanks.
Yeah.
And, like all the girls, I don't know if it was just because it was in their minds, but they all got hurt. They all got into accidents weeks after using this. And of course, they blamed the Ouija board. And I'm sitting there going, no, you got to blame your own stupidity, but whatever. But for me, like tarots, I was 14, but I was, all of my childhood, my mom read tea leaves. Like my mom was very devout in her faith. Like she was not a practicing witch, and she read tea leaves. I was raised with, you acknowledge the ghosts. You don't ever say come in if somebody's knocking at the door. If somebody passed away, they visited, you can smell their scent. Like that was normal to me. Have I ever used the Ouija board now as an adult? No. Do I own one? Yes. I have the board. I was actually gifted it by a witch outside of Witches Owl Exchange. Like this is a couple years ago. She sent it to me. A hoodoo voodoo practitioner. She made this board for me. It's the colors I love. It looks like the galaxy. She's like, I didn't consecrate it. I didn't bless it. I didn't use it. It's not attuned. Do what you want with it. But I felt that you needed to have it for the sake of having it. Just in case. Because if you don't use it, then it's, better than not having it. And I'm like, okay, so part of it's sitting in a treasure chest in my salt blend, and then the other one, the planchette is sitting, I think, in my coffin. Yes, I own a coffin.
Is it resin or is it?
It's the resin one, yeah.
I have a mold. Yeah, I'll make you one too, so you can have two. They can have. Yeah, I have resin mold. It's a little mini mold. I have one. I have the actual like board game for like the store. Like the one the horror movie's about. Yeah, I have it.
I can't remember where I watched it. Like, I don't want to say TikTok, but it was probably TikTok. But there was a thing. So we all know, like, I have nothing against Christians or organized religion, but there is a Christian version of the Ouija board where you can talk to God or Jesus. And I was sitting there going, and the planchette's across, like, I mean, good on them trying to adapt to the mainstream aesthetic. But all I could think was, this is not going to end well. Like, Mom, I'm going to so-and-so's for a sleepover. We're going to play with the talking board and talk to God. And I'm going, if you do not know what you're doing, why touch? Do your research. That's no different than when the girls, when I was younger. Like, for myself, will I use a Ouija board? One day. One day I will. Just to see what, the hubbub is about.
Yeah.
Do I have the want to use it? No, I have my cards. I have my oracles. Or not oracles, pendulums, runes. Like, if somebody really needs to get a hold of me, they know how to do it. Just as long as they don't smash anything that I like.
Yep. My kid's terrified of the Ouija board. And as you know, he's sensitive, so it's not like he's not scared of the ghost that comes up and plumps him on the head, but he's terrified of the Ouija board because of the movie.
Well, yeah. Well, no, but that's the downside about Hollywood. Hollywood takes so many aspects and bastardizes them. It's no different than, how organized religion came to be, bastardized a lot of our pagan beliefs and different cultural beliefs and, like a lot of the images of the devil, like of Lucifer, is Bahamut, Cernus, a lot of them. Like even like when I came to it, my mom, the first thing she said, "You're going to hell." I'm like, but I don't believe in hell. Like
Yeah.
I've never, even like as a little kid, she said like I was very mature. I talked about things I shouldn't have no clue about. And it's like maybe I was just a reincarnation and I'm just coming back because humanity is still young yet. We have a long ways to go. And it really upset her. Like I can understand from her point of view being older now, but as a teenager, I was like, Mom, what do you know? I was very headstrong and stubborn. Wait, I'm still stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's just one of those things. Like there's a lot of that going on, and it doesn't matter which culture, which faith that you go through. There's a lot of that bastardization. Like my first deity, Aragoshful, I knew all this stuff about her. Just innate knowledge. I didn't know her name. I knew what she looked like. When I started getting into working with deities and other beings, it was, okay, I need to find out. Because this one has been with me since I was little. When I had nightmares, that soothing sensation, I knew it was her. Because it was the same feeling I had when I got my first devotional for her. Do I agree with some of the stuff that, she talks about? No. But, like, that's the joy of being able to pick and choose what you want.
Yeah.
You can take the knowledge. You can choose to practice that knowledge or you can choose not to. But Sumerian Mesopotamian culture was wiped out by the next culture, and the next culture was wiped out. It's I hate to say it, but it's a cycle, and we as humans we follow these cycles. Like we go through our destruction cycle, we go through a peace cycle, and unfortunately, it's how it's always been. Like it's always built on the bones of another society.
Yeah. Somebody, not somebody, I was watching the Osbournes Want to Believe, right? And
Mhm.
Sherrie and Ozzy were talking to their son. Why did I just forget his name? Jack.
Jack?
What? Yeah, I was like, I know his name. And they were talking about how they believe that we're on like try number 7. And I'm like, that makes so much sense. Because that kind of explains why we can't explain how they built the pyramid. Well, what about back when the pyramids were built, they were like where we are now. And then they went through their destruction. Like I'm just using that as an example,
Yeah.
right? And then so they went through their destruction, so now they're considered ancient. So if we go through our destruction and there's a new, try
Mhm.
80, for example, our skyscrapers, they're gonna be like, how do primitive beings build skyscrapers? You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna be so much more advanced than us. It's gonna be like, how did they do that? Where they won't know that we had, equipment.
I'm just saying this now. Please don't let me be an exhibit in the museum. Please don't let me
Right?
be an exhibit in the museum.
I think so. My spirit that came to me, of course, was a demon. I was 14, so it was right after my grandpa died. 13, 14. I think it was after he died because my grandma and grandpa didn't share a room when he passed, like, when they were older, like, all while I was growing up. 'Cause I grew up with my mom and grandma and grandpa and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because my grandma broke her hip and my grandpa was up and down all night. So my grandpa had his own room and my grandpa had her own room, But I also guess, like, something that was, like, way back when too. Like, remember, like, watching the really old movies, like, they had, like, 2 beds? So, I think that was just a thing too, like, they just didn't like sharing a bed. Anyway, so when my grandpa passed away, I got his room, which is actually the room that I'm in now, which is crazy.
Well, it's definitely etiquette from the time period of our grandparents. Like my grandparents didn't share a room. but the etiquette was totally different. Like, as women, we went to finishing school to find husbands. And that's like, you could go to university, you could take your university courses, but it was always very feminine dominated courses. And it was like librarian, typing, how to set a table. Seriously, I don't care how to set a table. As long as there's a fork, knife, and spoon, I'm able to go. I'm good. Back then, though, there was something you needed to know. Or your husband brings the boss home and you do a faux pas, he could lose his job over that.
Yep. Yeah, WandaVision had that where he brought a wife home and like Wanda or the boss and the wife of the boss home and like he almost lost his job. I saw that. So yeah, it is a finishing school. Like there's a lot of things that you watch. I can't think of some movies that like the girls would go to college, but if they got married, they would take like long time class. And they would be fine. Like, because
Mona Lisa smile.
Here we go, yeah. Because it was more important to be a wife than to finish your education.
I don't know. I'm fascinated with like, we'll say like 1910 to like 1960s, pre-hippie, that generation of time, because it was simpler and, romanticized a lot. Like, we romanticized the Victorian age, but a lot of the stuff that is happening every day, like teenage pregnancy, sex out of wedlock, all that stuff, that happened then too. It's just we chose to gloss over the messier side of things because, we want to have the next generation be better than us. And I'm sitting there going, my kids know everything. Like, they know their mom was a wild child. Well, I wasn't really a wild child, but all my friends' parents thought I was. But like, I didn't hide anything. I was truthful with my kids. A wild child, or they had their wild spurt, and two of them were on their own path. They're productive. Can't say happy because happy is a state of being that happens every so often for them, just because they're feeling that adulting trials and tribulations. So it's one of those things, right? But they're on their paths. Like, I did when I was first out of the broom closet. I was doing an embolic ritual with my, I was planting the first seeds. And these seeds, my basil, my dill, and I think it was my sage, within weeks of doing this ritual, they bloomed, they were growing. We had so much basil for 2 years before, we ran out. Like, this plant, I was expecting it to die out. No, this thing, it enjoyed the neglect I was giving it. It was bad for watering plants or, sitting with my plants. Then, now it's not so much because I love my plants and I look at it as a form of self-care because they're all named funny little names. But when I sit with them, it's like sitting with myself. So now I have to take care of them because I got to take care of myself.
Yeah, right.
But when we did that, like, my youngest, who's an atheist, he doesn't know what he wants to believe. He's exploring his avenues. He could read tarots. Like, I've never showed him. He sits there and he just tells me what's going on. I'm like, okay, you're going to probably end up on this path too, or you're going to be like, your Nana, where you can do certain things, but you believe certain things. That's fine. Like, whatever. My oldest is Norse pagan. He think it's Thor is the main one that he follows. And then my daughter is Greek pantheon. She's researching Hermes and Apollo.
Okay.
And she's like, Mom, I think they're trying to contact you through me. I'm like, no, that is for you. Mine, they're very direct. When they want to be recognized by me, they'll tell me. And she's like, how do you know? Well, with the Aragoshla, I've always known who she was. Athena and Hecate. Now, those two, Hecate was like the stronger one. I've always kind of just, I did my research on her and I just kind of set it aside. And then, like, in the process of writing my book, the year-long adventure, just some things, like, I would have a pen pal send me, like, Hecate's prayer, or send me, like, this 3-page, I still have it, the 3-page thing on Hecate, like her daughter was Circe. One of the antagonists in my story, her name is Circe. Keys. Do you know how many keys I have? Like, I have keys for things I do not know, and then I have, like, the old, like, skeleton keys, and as soon as I get one, it multiplies. My son gave me one, and it multiplied. I'm like, hey, where are these keys coming from? And then one night, I wrote, like, a whole bunch of things, and it's got all of her symbols and imagery. I'm like, okay, you don't have to be this clear about it. All right, I get it. You want to be recognized.
I'm missing your key now. I have a bag of keys. The letter that I'm writing here, missing a key. Well, it's my crow. I have a pet crow. Remember that when I was telling you? I was like, he went to pick up trash, and I like opened up the window. I'm like, you don't want that. That's trash. So he dropped it. He literally comes every day, and I inadvertently taught him to be a thief just because I feed him, you know. And he leaves stuff, keys all the time. I have so many keys in the crow.
It's just funny. And Athena, I watched the live, and like, you know, I don't go to research anything. I watched the first live, and then I watched the second live. I'm like, oh, you know, like she's kind of a badass. You look at like all the things, all the stories, and I grew up to those stories, like listening to them and learning about them. Then all of a sudden I have owls. You know, I had got gifted, like this Christmas, I got gifted an owl cup. I have owl stickers coming out of the wazoo. I'm like, okay. Then I got an Athena poem. I'm like, all right, I get it. You want to be recognized. You want to be heard. You want that to work with each other, because I don't worship, I work with. Because if they want my worship, then that means that they're like my one and only, at least in my mind, because I'm not completely out of like the organized Christian thinking of like you only have one deity and that's it. And it is a process to declutter your mind of that way of thinking, but like now it's a little bit more freeing. But I still work with, like, I leave them offerings. I work with them. I do their devotionals. Like, I'm doing Hecate's Keeping Her Keys, which for the first little while, it just was not computing. It was like banging my head and like getting upset. And then, you know, now I've got, I think, 3 chapters in, I'm still doing the workings. I'm just like, wow, I knew this already. I know how to do this. Oh, wow. And then the visitations afterwards, like that one night where I said the scent of beer.
Yep.
And like that was crazy. Well, I cleaned up my room the other day, spruced up where Hecate's statue is, because right now she's kind of, I know she doesn't like sharing. She likes her space, but I don't have a lot of spaces for them right now. I gotta get some shelves. Buddha, Ganesh, and Kali are all sitting with her on the top of my thing. I like having them close by so they can watch over me while I sleep. You know, she's not having it. She does not like sharing her space. I have a 3D printed Sphinx. It went flying off the corner of my dresser, which intersects 2 walls. It was on the floor by my door, which is nowhere near it. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I get you don't want to share your space. It's only temporary. Here, have a candy.
Right,
She had Starburst, because that's what I had.
You know who else is owls? And this is why I'm obsessed with them? Lilith. If you're getting a lot of owls, it could be her too.
Well, and that's the thing. That one day you're talking about Lilith, and then all of a sudden my news feed on like on Facebook, but not just Facebook, like my threads, my Insta, my TikTok, there's all Lilith. And I'm like, okay, Missy, like simmer down. And like being raised Roman Catholic, you weren't told about Lilith. Like Lilith did not exist in any part of the Bible. Like every Bible's different. Every religion is different. We never knew about her. It wasn't until I came out of the broom closet, like I started seeing a lot of Lilith things then, even where, you know, she's the first ex-wife. And I'm sitting there going, I'm an ex-wife. Like,
yep.
Oh, and then you start hearing the different variations of biblical stories. Like, I know I could get shade for this, but the reason why God hates Cain, well, that's because the way it was explained to me, when Lilith was cast out and Eve was made in the same image as Lilith. except she was very submissive.
Mhm.
And then Lucifer or the devil or whatever, the snake came to Eve thinking that was Lilith. He laid with her. Boom, she's pregnant with Cain. Then she lays with Adam. Boom, then there's Abel. So that's why. And I'm sitting there going, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, that answered a lot of questions. Like, why couldn't she tell me that when I was going through Catholicism?
Because Mormonism doesn't talk about her either.
Well,
Yeah.
every religion is so different, and every Bible has been tampered with to suit the needs of men in power. And I don't mean that to sound sexist, but it is very true, because predominantly government officials and positions of power have predominantly been male. And you know, like, what do you expect? Like, not to bring up your your returning president, but didn't he have a Bible that he was changing to suit him?
I don't know. I think it was a rumor because that's not, or it's so hidden. Like, that's not something that I'm aware of. I don't. We're not really going to talk about him. My only issue I had with him was because of the co-star not getting paid. But I mean, there's so much stuff that I've seen that's not true too. So it's like it's so hard. Well, it's like I was talking like AI, for example. Um, it's so hard to tell what's not AI and what's real anymore. That it's almost disrespectful to people that have the bad hauntings
Yeah.
that are really being, tortured. Like people faking that stuff, I see it as being so disrespectful to people that are truly suffering. Like, all right, you know what? If you're gonna fake it, why don't you have that? Like those ghosts or the innocent family, they should go haunt the people that are faking it. And why would you want to fake it for clicks and views? Like,
Well, that's the downside is, so one thing that hasn't changed throughout any part of civilization of mankind, of humanity, is that we are very vain creatures. And we are. The more we are like, the more that we are viewed. The thing is, like, you look at, like, during the Roman period, right, with the Colosseum, they would go watch people being executed and ripped apart and stabbed
yeah,
and murdered, and and they got cheers for that. It's no different than it is now. Just now we have more accessibility to it. Like, it's not in one place. It is everywhere. It's, left, right, and center. You can go on to any social media and, you have these influencers who can sway public opinion. And it's like, you have all this power. Why aren't you swaying the opinion to something else? Like, being more socially conscious. Like, there's things that people can be doing, but
yeah,
because we're that vanity, right? Like that, I know what it's called. You think I'd remember the word, but it's like that craving for that attention, right? But then again, you also look at like the witch talk. Like, some of them I love watching. They've given me aha moments. When I was starting out, it gave me my pinpoint moments to go, oh, I want to look into this. I want to look at that. It wasn't, what they say is their end all be all, but it's not mine. Like, I've been gifted spells from tons of witches through Witches Owl Exchange and a bunch of other ones. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but that is coming from another witch. I'll tweak it so it suits my needs. Like, I have a couple of hoodoo voodoo spells that were gifted to me by a practitioner, and some of it's a little darker than I was prepared for, but I still have them. They are still something that's cherished to me, but it was my end all be all. It was, hey, I've got this. Let's look into this. Let's see what this is about. And I'm not saying, oh, well, if it's a closed practice, do it anyway. That is definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, I made it so it fits my path, and my path changes so much. Like, it's like when I was a teenager, one day my hair is purple, the next day it's black and white. Like, that's how my path is.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, if it's like the thing with like gatekeeping, because we've talked about that. Like, if it's a legitimate closed practice and a person that is not actually in it tells you you can do it or you can't do it, that's one thing. But like, if a person that's actually a part of that culture wants to teach you, that's something else because they're opening up that gate, you know.
Exactly.
And the only person that can tell you if you can or can't is somebody from that. I mean, what I'm saying is, like, if they say no, do not do this, that means no, do not do this. I can't tell you not to practice something that I don't practice, but a practitioner of that absolutely can be like, this is closed. Our deities, our ancestors say the only people that can do it have to be blood in this. You need to respect it, you know?
Well,
Like,
well, it's no
hey,
different than Indigenous, right? Being Indigenous, how many people out there have said, well, I'm, a Cree princess or a Cherokee princess? That there was no princess, that you were the chief's daughter, you were a warrior, you were a berry picker, whatever. But now we're looking at a lot of the Indigenous cultures are reclaiming their heritage. So if they ask you not to say the word smudge, respect that, like, yeah, I'm Métis, smudge to me, that's what I was raised up. Like my cookum, it's time to smudge. Okay, let's go smudge. I go to a friend's house before school. Her cookum or her mushroom would be like, "Okay, come smudge." We'd go smudge. Like, but it has caused a lot of controversy and debate. Like, can you use this word? Well, it is how you do something. If somebody who's Indigenous says, please don't use that word, use smoke cleansing, respect that person because they've got a lot of generational trauma for one. Two, they're reclaiming their heritage and their culture. Like, work with them because they'll teach you something. They'll teach you about like the medicine wheel. Like, there's aspects of every culture and every civilization that are exactly the same. Exactly the same, just worded differently, right? But you got to respect those people that are trying to reclaim and make themselves better as a community, right? And a lot of people don't understand that. Well, I have rights to this. You have no rights to anything because guess what? In a day, when you cross over, however life ends, however you look at it, when you cross over, you're not taking any of this with you. You take those experiences and whatever you believe. Like for myself, reincarnation, you go to the in-between world where all energy is collected in the universe. You go back to your family pods. You share the life experiences with them. You meet the same people that have been in your life every single life. You share it and then you're reborn. You don't get to take anything more than that experiences, those energies, before you move on to the next.
Like sage, like how everybody's all about not using white sage, right? Now, I have the native, the indigenous in my blood, so I grow my own. But people aren't saying don't use cigarettes. You know, tobacco is more sacred than, I mean, sage is sacred, but tobacco is more sacred. So if we're going to protect something, get rid of cigarettes. Get rid of anything that has tobacco, unless it's your culture, you know?
Well, and that's the thing, like, take the time, if you're going to use white sage, take the time and buy from an indigenous business and listen to how they describe the sacred herbs. So you've got tobacco, which is a very sacred herb. That's what you give as offering to nature and Mother Earth. That's what you give in offering to an elder to get your indigenous name because they taught you something. That's like epitome. Then sage is yes, it is a sacred herb, but it is for the cleansing and purification of not just your body, mind, body, and spirit. And then you have cedar. Like there's so many elders out there that are willing to work with people of other cultures to explain and to teach them indigenous ways. Because that's how, as a civilization, we grow. We learn from each other. Like, I'm not a practicing Muslim. I do have a friend, an acquaintance that I've made through moving and at my work that he will explain to me certain things. If I start asking him, like, well, when you pray, is at certain times, what do you pray about? How similar is the Bible to the Quran? And, it's no different than like the Satanic Bible. How different is that to the Holy Bible? Like, I've owned a Holy Bible or Bible. I like that word Bible. I did have, unfortunately, we did not see eye to eye because where I was and where he was two different planes. But I did have a friend that was part of the Satanic Temple. He tried to explain things to me, but for my brain, I wasn't there yet. Like, I was still breaking the shackles. Like, I don't have anything against satanic people. Well, I don't. Because you know what? They've got information. They've got missing parts of the information I have. Just like the people that are, Muslim or from East Indian culture with Kali and Shiva. Everybody has a bit of information that will fill in the holes that will make me a better person. Is just sitting down and listening to them.
Yeah, I actually met somebody that was a Satanist, and I asked her, like, I wanted more information. This is when I was I was still a Mormon, so this is like going to the farther extreme. I was still a Mormon, but I met her, and she was like such a good person. She was into domestic abuse rescue, because that's something, as you know, as a deep passion of mine is. I would be one of those people that will go and help a woman escape in the middle of the night and make her go where she's safe. Like, one of my dreams is to have a halfway house, or like a hidden halfway house, where they can go if they're trying to escape somebody and they just, safe out in the middle of nowhere, you know. So I actually asked questions, and she sent me their sentence, and I remember reading them and being like, it literally says if somebody says no, no means no, respect it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, wow. Or like, if somebody's in need, help them. I don't remember the exact words to it. Or like, science over prayer kind of thing. Like, if you need medical attention, get medical attention. I was like, wow. But the fact that it actually said that you have autonomy over your own body. I forget the actual wording to it, but no, no, respect that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, as women in our society right now, we do not have a lot of control over our body. That's a sad thing. Like, I went for a hysterectomy, no baby making factory here. It's now been exploded, imploded, removed. It is a parking lot. I love it. I'm not gonna lie. But before I could go for that surgery, I had 2 doctors ask me, what does your husband say? I'm like, I don't care what he says. It's my body, my choice. If I'm telling you I want this, then I'm going to have this. And if you're going to question me again, I will take you to human rights and I'll make a big stink about it. The one was a woman. That's what bothered me. Like, you know what I'm going through. You can see in my charts. You can see I was in the ER 19, 20 times in 1 month. Like, this is life-saving at this point. My body, my choice. My children, I raised sons, which I give props to anybody that raises the opposite sex of what they are. Whether it's chosen or not, like, I don't care. I support LGBTQ and all the other numbers and letters that go with it. I'm sorry. I'm horrible at trying to remember it. I just call them the Rainbow Brigade because my daughter is part of them. I love her to 2 bits. I support anybody. But when you have to raise somebody that is the opposite sex or identifies differently, it is challenging. But how do you tell your son what you are going through as a woman that they understand and are respectful of that?
Yep.
Because, like, it's hard. I feel bad for my partner because he had to help me raise my daughter. Like, he walked into a prefab family. He got most of the headbutting and, angsty part of the teenage years. But raising a daughter that was struggling with their sexuality, was struggling with what they identified as, they are beautiful, and explaining to all 3 of them, your body, your choice. If you want to go get a tattoo tomorrow and I tell you no, that is me being a hypocrite. I said to them, but you will never tell a woman, no, they cannot do something with their body. Just like a woman cannot tell you, you can't do something with your body. And that's the thing about witchcraft and having that autonomy over your own body, I found the most liberating, because that mindset is gone. Like, in being Roman Catholic, one of the things that we were taught in Catholicism when we were separated, because we had a nun and a priest, was scary. I actually do have a fear of nuns, by the way, because they do not look like they're walking. They look like they're just floating, and they're scary.
We never had any. We never, like, I was born Catholic, and then I converted to Mormon. We never had none at our church.
We did.
Yeah, we never had them.
Like the full habit and everything, like Sister Act looking. Yeah, we had them.
Yeah, we didn't.
They were nicer than the priests. They were still just as mean. That's where, like, I have a lot of issues with organized religion. It's not for me. I have questions. I will ask the questions, but for myself, I will not go back to it. It's just, that's where I am on my life path.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, it's just, it's funny to, like, nuns actually do scare me. But, like, I totally lost my train of.
So horror movies with nuns too that I've never seen a nun, and like growing up like Catholic and then becoming a Mormon, I've never seen a nun in person, which is insane.
I have at hospitals, at school, at like family gatherings. Oh, I remember the Catholicism when they separated us. And they told us that our duty as women is to be supportive of our husband, and that we can't say no to them. And I was like, "Oh, back up the train. What?" And they're like, "Yes, because in the Bible it says, go forth and be fruitful." So I'm just a baby making machine? And you gotta remember, this is early to mid 90s. So there's still that separation of girls go learn about their periods. Very, like, it was secret society. And it wasn't really fully explained. They didn't explain to me what was going to happen. They just explained that, and I feel sorry because, like, the one teacher we had, she was so embarrassed to talk about it. When I had kids, like, I was embarrassed to say, like, the proper anatomy names because of that. Or, some situations I got into growing up, not being able to use the word no, because good girls don't say that word. They're thankful for almost that attention. And it's like, no, you know what? I told my daughter, my kid, and my sons, like, all of them are all the same. If somebody says no, it is no. If you are not comfortable, no. If you need mom to come get you, you get mom. Like, it was very cut and dry, so that they didn't have the same situations I got into, because I probably would be a completely different person if somebody had said, no, you can say no. You have control of your body. You can do this. You can believe this. And that was free. And being more so with where witches roam and unseen, that the way that they present across, like, yes, it is very much a women's only group. I can understand why. Like, I am part of groups that they've got their Rainbow Brigade, they've got men, women, and we get along, but it's a very small, closed group. That I didn't realize men went through the same autonomy issues that women do. Men, that toxic masculinity, that boys don't cry. No, boys can cry. The bravest thing, the hardest thing a boy can do is cry. Like, I don't know. These are things I've noticed since coming out, since doing the whole life path and faith switch, is that there was so many things that we were taught that you just don't do, and it's old mindsets.
Well, like protection, not using birth control, right? I have a Sunday school story. No sex before marriage, protection, all that stuff. We were in Sunday school, so this is high school Sunday school, right? And they were talking about it. I don't know why we were talking about it in Sunday school. Like, you know what I'm saying? And one of the boys go there, and he's like, well, that's what protection does. And the woman goes, you don't use protection? That's a sin.
That's because abstinence was a way to be closer to, the Almighty. But in the days, what was the number one thing that they told us, whether it was public school, separate school, or, private school? You didn't, know was the way to go. You don't know, you don't have sex. You abstain from it. But if you have to, then you'll
Wrap it
want
up.
this.
Yep.
But we're not encouraging you to do that because it's bad. And I'm sitting there going, but I have questions. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things. Don't get me wrong, 90s were a wild time. Early 2000s, a little bit wilder. I didn't get to experience it, but I lived vicariously through friends. But it was the misinformation that we got and just the closed-mindedness. Like, I remember not only did I get quoted, I got expelled for the afternoon because I refused to go change the tank top that wasn't 2 fingers wide and showed my red bra strap.
Oh god. Yeah.
Yep. And, and now some of the girls, when my daughter graduated, I wish I felt that comfortable in my body, but some of them, I couldn't pull that off, like the bare midriff, almost bra top, shorty shorts, and I'm sitting there going, you go, girl. Just remember it was the 90s babies who made sure you could dress like that for school.
Yep.
I wouldn't do it. But props to her to feel that secure in her body. Like, I was never that secure.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
was a lot of the way that I was raised, but a lot of, what was happening in the 90s. You had to wear a certain way. You got to look a certain way. That whole almost like clone-like experience.
And the reason for not being able to wear tank tops is because your shoulder could turn guys on.
Just that little bit of shoulder. I didn't know for, some guys that shoulder was the way to go.
I mean, I guess maybe, I would think, well, yeah, it always had to be, like, down to, like, the tip of your finger, no past, like, that first line, your first line.
Yeah.
I used to wear midriffs, just a little midriff, but I would wear a shirt over it, I'd button it up, and then take it up, open it up, and pass and button it back up. Yeah, like, I would wear the tank top underneath the shirt, like, I definitely, like, put the dress code.
I lived in tank tops. I still live in tank tops. Tank tops and jeans. Like, I'm comfiest in them.
Yeah.
Even being my age, like, there's a lot of things that I still wear that is from the generation of when I went to school, and I'm not going to change that. I'm comfortable in it. Clothes don't have an age limit. Well, some don't, but if you feel comfortable in it, wear it. If it makes you happy, wear it.
Well, and, like, working with Lilith, we'll get to that, to get back to that. She's very much trying your own sexuality and stuff like that, too, right? You grew up the same, and then I became Mormon, so we even got more, like, Catholics already. I think Catholics are fundamentalist religion, too, but they're not as bad as Mormonism, so I went from, like, being super, super conservative, like, in the Mormon church, it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't
You
show
gotta be,
any,
like, covered from, like, your neck to your toes.
I think it's like, well, how long are garments? So, with shoulders, I think of women garments, I didn't go that. I did not get my temple stuff. I didn't get married in temple, so I never got my temple garment. Um, as long as your garments didn't show, but trust me, that means that you were modest, like your dresses were always long, and I still dress kind of modest, but, I went from that to now when I'm doing the clothes with Lowe's, you saw what I bought too. Yeah, I will do that red one, the nightgown. I will do rituals in that because it's coming into myself. I have so much, like, trauma from religion about sexuality and being okay with being sexual, that doing stuff like that is helping me empower myself. And all I'm doing is just doing my ritual in lingerie over, being dressed. Nobody's
Well,
gonna
the
say
thing
anymore.
is we were taught we wore lingerie to appease the male
Yeah,
counterparts in our life.
yeah,
No, for me, like, my mom gave me lingerie. Like, it wasn't like racy or anything, but sleep sets, bra, underwear, socks, that's all forms of lingerie.
yeah,
So she gave me this, and she always told me, and this was the coolest thing about my mom that I can remember, was when you want to dress and feel pretty or feel sexy, or you want to exude that kind of power, you're dressing for you. You don't dress for somebody else. And I've always been that way. I've got I've got lingerie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a bit girly with my lingerie. Like, I've got some racy things, but I like the bright colors and that, and the more sheer with the lace. But I always felt more empowered in that aspect with my lingerie because I was doing it for me.
Yep.
But it's no different than sex, right? Like, the act of sex in itself is two entities coming together, or one, depending, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can do sex magic where you dedicate the big O or the act
Yeah.
O to a deity. And I was like, wait, you can do that? Like,
Yeah.
this is something, because sex was always about procreation
Yep.
when I was still, decluttering the mind of old ways of thinking. And now I'm like, "Oh, I want to do this. I want to
Yeah.
try this." And it's like, huh. But yeah, like, talking about like the whole sexual traumas, like, I have a handful that just shadow work I've been working on.
Mhm.
I definitely noticed it was more so within the last, like, since moving and
Mhm.
reclaiming my sense of self and starting to do the more selfish magic and
Yeah.
starting to put me first, that I've realized, even like with sex, it's like, huh, I know I have that issue of being where I don't want to be, and I'm
Mhm.
not saying it to, now I'm saying where I don't want to be, and I'm taking what I want out of it,
Mhm.
where, it's kind of like gender norms are switched, right? I'm not saying that like I'm going out there and causing it. I'm just allowing myself to enjoy what I'm feeling a lot more instead of worrying about how do I look?
Yeah.
Am I pleasing or whatever?
Mhm. Well, there's almost a shame to the female O, you know? You shouldn't be having that for the female. But, like, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain, but,
Well,
like,
were you raised with masturbation is okay?
nope, no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, see, and for me, I was in high school,
Mhm.
and everybody used to, not, well, everybody in my group, I should clarify. Everybody in my group used to say, "Very cherry, virgin Sherrie," with the cherry. And I was like, okay, I really hated that. So I can't remember what I had started reading, because this was the start of my witchcraft journey. And I had read about, masturbation on the Catholicism side, which is a sin, because you're not supposed to touch yourself. And I'm sitting there going, but how do you know what you like if you don't? How do you know what it feels like? Because somebody could do it completely wrong and it could be so painful and so
Mhm.
disappointing. I'd rather have some knowledge of what I'm going into than having no knowledge at all. So then, I would go around, well, you know what? At least I know how to please myself. It's easier to know how to please yourself and know what you like when you go into something like that.
Mhm.
And like a lot of my friends, we're all under the age of 18. So there's a lot of them that are, hanky panky, whatever. And when I finally got wanting it, because I wasn't that girl that, I wanted it. No, I was very disinterested by it because of my girlfriends and some of my guy friends, that they would talk about how horrible it was. And then the blowout afterwards, like this one guy, he jumped up on the table in the cafeteria, said so-and-so's like messing with hot water. And all I could think was, well, how do you know how hot water feels like?
Yeah.
Like, that teenage mentality is definitely there. Was no maturity. And even as an adult, there's still no maturity. I've listened to women older than me bashing their partners, and I'm sitting there going, if it was that bad, why didn't she just leave?
Yeah. You don't have to
Like,
stay.
you have that power to do so. Well, because you don't want to upset them. Dude, if my partner is doing it wrong, either I will tell them, I will show them, or I will do it my damn self.
Yeah. Or did you, like, if you get married, did you not try out the goods before getting married? Like, you
The
know
whole
what?
reason why I got married was because I tried out the goods. But like, what if that's the thing? Like, I was raised no sex before marriage. If you get pregnant, you don't have a child out of wedlock. Da 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 da. And all I can think was, why is there such a thing about marriage? It is a piece of paper. And most times, if you've been with a person for 10 years, like after working in a bridal boutique, after 10 years, if you're getting married, 9 times out of 10, they're getting divorced.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'd rather, do a hand ceremony, get a blessing, whatever, do your thing. But do you really need to spend that much money? Like, even if I was to do the whole wedding thing again, I'd just go alone. Me, my partner, and JP, because I can find other things to spend that money on. Like, hey, let's go to Italy for 2 weeks, which it costs about the same amount as, going to get married, spending tens of thousands of dollars. Like, I just don't see the necessity of it.
And you can legally change your name without getting married. You can change it.
$150 just to change your name, filling out your paperwork. And so you think about, so $150 just to change your name legally.
Yeah.
Then you got, where if you go the wedding route, you have to pay the officiant, you have to pay for the wedding license, you have to actually get the wedding license certificate afterwards. Then you got to do the big day, the clothes, the food, everything. Sure, why are you going into this new chapter of your life and already you're bankrupt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know money is an illusion, but just simple math makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I want my name to be the same as yours, so let's just change it. Let's do a hand fest. Why does there have to be, like, unless it's something like you're from 2 different countries, like, I could see you having to have that piece just so that you're not, like, playing country hop every 6 months,
Or doing it just because you want your citizenship. Like, I mean, there is that aspect too, but I don't know. If you want to get married, get married. If you don't want to get married, don't get married. Like, it really shouldn't have to matter. Like, the downside about, I guess, getting married now, besides the cost and, like, people's attitudes toward it, is back in, like, the 30s and 40s, I don't think you really needed to have a marriage license. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm very fascinated about that time period.
Yeah.
So when I'm not doing my, like, book writing for my second book and doing my witchy stuff, I'm always looking at that time period for another book because it's something that fascinates me. And, like, I play post-apocalyptic games because it is eventuality that can happen.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, this actually makes sense. This is, how would this have happened? And then I'm sitting there Googling and going through encyclopedias trying to find all this information. But at one point in time, you didn't need to have all these licenses. Yeah, you needed insurance, you needed a vehicle license. But most of the time, if you were driving, like, on the farms, like where I'm at, they had their license at like 13 years old in that time because they had to help on the farm.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's, but stuff like that is different. Well, they also got married really young, and honestly, wasn't it basically a girl was her dad's property, and then she became her husband's property? You know what I'm saying?
We're considered chattel. We didn't. That's the funny thing is, if you think about it, men didn't grow. Really, they didn't grow until the woman that they married, because women, we're our own abundance spell. And I don't want to sound sexist, but it is true. Like, we are our own abundance spell. You give a woman food, she's going to cook you a meal. You give a woman sperm, she's going to give you a baby. You give her a house, she makes it a home. Everything that we do, and I don't know about so much now, but back then it was that abundance to it, right? Like, we caused a lot of prosperity. You grew because that woman could be friends with your boss's wife at the country club, It's really weird to think about it now, especially that I just had the idea that, yeah, we're basically abundance spells that just take a little bit longer to make things work.
Yeah, well, think about it. Have you watched the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on, right?
I've
Have you
seen
that
a couple of the episodes, yeah.
Like in the very beginning when they're still married, like that's 1950s, and she basically cooked food so that her husband could get on stage sooner.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
Or the makeup. Like this blew my mind. And her mother was the same way. She would go to sleep with makeup on with her husband. He would fall asleep. She would get up, do her nighttime routine. She would crash blind till the sun woke her up. So she would get up before him to do her routine and have makeup on her face, get back in bed, and then wake him up when the alarm went off. Full makeup to be a housewife.
Well, and that's the thing. They were raised like that. That's the crazier part. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some aspect I could have done without, like dresses. I'm only a summer type kind of dress where I don't want to wear anything else. It's too hot. Dresses or skirts.
Yep.
But back then, that was wearing pants where you were looked at as you were either cheap or poor.
Yep.
You know, you didn't wear pants up until a certain time when the feminist movement started. But same with wearing stockings. You had to wear stockings. I hate stockings. I get them caught on everything. I end up with huge runs. But it's no different. Like, okay, so I had a question going on the whole Mrs. Maisel thought, because at one point in time, your country started by Puritan law, right? So they left the Church of England or whatever churches it was, Roman Catholic Church. They came here with their own religious aspects and beliefs, and they're very stringent. So tell me, when you started practicing on your path, did you guys have a law there where you could get charged for practicing witchcraft?
No, but I've heard in New Orleans there is a law.
So when I started at 14, so that was 1990 something, 96, 96, 97. So when I started high school, I went into law class because at that time they had it for senior one. And they were talking about witchcraft, and all somebody had to do to have somebody else charged, and this is the crazy thing, you could be charged for practicing witchcraft, no judge, no jury, no investigation, was one person had to say, they put a spell on me.
Yep.
Because we had not only the English with the Church of England and Roman Catholic, but we had our own versions of people that separated from the Puritans to settle up here. So they had their own views of everything. That law did not change until around the same time I had my youngest in the 2000s.
Are you serious? So this is like a law that back in Salem. We'll use Salem. So like the same in the time of Salem witch trials was still set in modern time there. Yeah, it's freedom of religion here. Besides, I did hear that New Orleans, like in actual New Orleans, there's a law about voodoo. But besides that, no, you can't get charged. You're more likely to get charged for being a polygamist, which is also a religion, because then witchcraft. There's no law against witchcraft.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's weird to think about, like, a lot of the aspects that we take for granted, even in the witchcraft community. Like, yeah, they had metaphysical store. A lot of the laws that pertain around our practicing are still there. They haven't been changed. They're just not pushed through as much through the court systems because they have other things, like other crimes that they got to worry about. In Canada, where I was living at the time, a girl who was so give you a little backstory on how I know this. When I was 14, I had a lot of premonitions, but I always thought they were bad dreams that just came true. Like, I thought I was just this evil child, whatever, right? So a friend's mom heard me telling my friend, she's like, I want you to come here. We need to discuss things. My mom gave her the okay. My friend's mom was a high priestess. She's a fantastic soul. She's now retired. She's not on the same path. Her life has changed. But at that time, she taught me meditations. She taught me some, incantations to help me not have as many premonitions. And I'm talking about, like, it was the simplest little premonitions too. Like, I'd go to sleep, I'd dream of a friend and I getting into a fight over this boy. I could tell you exactly what she wore. I could tell you what he wore, what I wore, where we were. the times, right? Write down specific times, right? I'd tell my friend, this is going to happen, don't get mad. We still ended up having a falling out, whatever, it came to pass. So in the same coven as this high priestess who was showing me how to harness that aspect. Oh, you sent me something? I'll look up.
Oh, yeah, and Sherrie, it's all laws in the U.S.
I'll definitely have to see if I can find the Canadian ones. But
Yeah.
she got picked up. She had spell books. She did like the little metaphysical stuff. Not a big thing. It's like a little kiosk, right? But because she was reading tarots, she got arrested, was arraigned. Everything was dropped, and then she had to have in her sign, like in her window, for entertainment purposes only.
Yes, that's the only laws there's, which is what I just sent you. So the only laws besides like way back when, like, so my practice is protected by freedom of religion, but some have laws against fortune telling because of people scamming people, which is sickening for those of us that are serious about that. Yeah.
Was it Victorian time? More so down in the States. I haven't heard much about Canada, but not to say that it didn't happen, because it most likely did. But like the Boston, New York area, like all those places that were heavily industrialized in the Victorian times, they would have these like seance houses. And when they did these seances, they had people tripping mechanisms and doing all these things that they're milking their clients. Now you look at like Winchester House.
Yeah. Yep.
I am going to go there at some point. I have to go there. Explain after. But the same thing, like she had how many seances with how many different practitioners or, shysters. And that poor woman dumped her whole fortune
in that house.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, for me, 13 is a huge number for me. I was born on the 13th. Anything pertaining to that day is like my luckiest day. I went out to the casino and I won a whole bunch of money. So on the 13th, a month before my birthday, when I was younger, I dreamt of this place for a month straight. I knew its ins and outs, did not know what it was called, did not know it actually existed. Watching America's Castles, because I love looking at old houses and old places. It just, something about it, maybe it's past life resonance that's just not able to let go. And all of a sudden this house comes up. And it's Winchester House. And I'm sitting there going, my goddess. Like, seriously? This place actually exists. And they had said something in the walkthrough. And like, that's wrong. It's like this. So then, the next documentary about this house comes up and they had clarified it, that they had gotten it wrong. And I'm like, that is creepy. I have to go there. I will go there eventually.
We'll go together. That's on my list. Yeah.
Oh, Salem is on my bucket list. New Orleans. New Orleans is definitely, and it's not just for the voodoo and hoodoo, because I am very curious about it. I want just New Orleans is like the metaphysical capital to me of North America. Anything that could happen metaphysically wise started there, kind of aspect.
Yeah.
And it's just the way I feel, right? Like even in my story, like New Orleans was kind of like where the high courts are for not just, vampires and werewolves, but other creatures, right? And, I'm pretty sure New Orleans is actually on a ley line. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Maybe. The dog alarm is going off. He's saying it's been an hour, so I definitely will have you come back on if you want to come back on.
Oh, for sure. This case, though, I was so nervous about coming on in the first place, but this is actually fun. It's like sitting with the bestie, just dropping the tea.
About anything. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I better wrap it out so that I can post it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You as well, and we'll chat on the flip side.
Okay, bye.
And that was our first episode of The Randomness of Witches. I had a blast with Sherrie, and I cannot wait to do another episode with her. Until next time, stay balanced and stay true to yourself.